Well, we have a quorum, so we should get started.
Perfect.
And just a reminder that this is being recorded, so the microphones are on, and just kind of mind your side conversations. And we all received a copy of the minutes, and thank you all for those who could make it to the July meeting. Appreciate that. Or the June meeting. Was it the June meeting? Yep, the June meeting. Thank you. I think I was fishing at the time, I believe,
Yes,
right?
yes.
It's been my excuse a couple of times. Any corrections? I have one correction. Just in, at the end, so the chairperson,
Oh, wasn't you?
yeah, so it probably was
Jim.
Jim, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Why shouldn't have done that?
Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I make a motion to accept the minutes from the June meeting as amended.
And any other edits or discussion? Yeah, John.
Just discussion,
Yeah.
why don't we vote on it first?
Okay,
I just wanna
yeah,
comment.
so all in favor? Aye. All
Who
right,
seconded?
And then, so there was a motion,
Chris. I'm sorry, go ahead,
there
John.
was a motion to the Gravestone Solution invoice.
Yes.
Not to pay that until we get some detail. Did we get the detail on that?
And I brought it tonight just in case you wanted to look at it.
Yeah, this,
No, as long as we said if we receive it, the payment went out, right?
okay,
Yeah.
okay, great, thank
We
you.
have another one tonight.
You-
No, we don't.
I did make a note of that, excellent. Other invoices?
Yes. Yeah, true.
I'll mention as kind of one bit of I'll call it correspondence, it arrived in the email. Kevin Estes is the planning board rep to the CPC. He gives his regrets today because he has out-of-town family, so he couldn't make today's meeting, but he will, going forward, be the rep from planning board.
So we do have another one from the gravestone, so if you want to see the,
Okay,
quite a few of them.
all right, we have a few of these. Dartmouth Footbridge, oh, this is the Cornell Pond. Cornell Pond feasibility. The amount of $2,400, and this is for survey and plan development. I'll pass this on. And then we have an invoice for $3,500, which is our annual dues for the Community Preservation Coalition. And this is the same amount as, actually, probably the previous couple of years. They have not changed their dues amount. And the coalition provides technical assistance. They lobby on behalf of the Community Preservation Act. And they hold trainings and webinars for communities and CPC committees like ours. $569, the next invoice, $569.92. And this is for kayak rack anchors, which is part of the dinghy kayak replacements at the Dias Landing. Here you go. And then we have an amount of $412 for the Dias Landing. And we may need for professional services.
Yeah, I didn't receive that. The select board's office did. And they did the voucher, et cetera, and then I got a call from the accounting that it had
Okay.
to be signed, so I don't really know nothing about that one.
Okay.
If you want more information, I certainly can get it.
We may, but folks, take a look at it. I'm not quite clear what this is for. I think the only thing we've been waiting for in the Dias Landing is, there is still an outstanding balance, but it's regards to signage. And they have a Dias Landing sign. They had inquired a few months ago about whether that would be within the CPC budget. And I did remind them that we did have an expectation for a project like that, that when there's signage, it would include acknowledgement of the CPA funds.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And if they had a sign that would acknowledge the CPA funds, more than likely, it would be, the committee would consider within the budget. But I haven't seen anything more, so I'm not clear on what the remaining expenses are.
It's very vague.
Yeah, because I don't think there's been much of, construction-wise, there hasn't been, that's been done for, I think, a few months now. At least that's been my impression. And then there's an invoice for $11,000 for the Joseph Davis Cemetery.
It's for June.
Is this the last?
I believe so, yes. June.
Okay,
So this is what John was talking about. We had only received that for
Okay.
the last invoice, and then I proceeded to get a lot of other information,
okay.
so,
So
They broke
is
it
this, was this already approved?
no. It was
Okay.
$12,000.
That was
This
12,000,
should be the end of it,
and this is an additional 11?
correct.
On that, okay.
So I don't know if you want to look through.
And with the 12 and the 11, is this, because I know that Becky was saying that this was the closeout,
Right,
right?
that was in June.
Okay. All right. So we have this $11,000, hey Susan, we have this $11,000 invoice.
This is different than what we looked at before?
Yes, this is in addition to the 12,000 that the committee reviewed at the last meeting.
But I brought cherry tomatoes.
Those Sun Gold, they're like candy. These things are like candy.
My chipmunks think too.
You get them at Stop and Shop?
Man. Break my heart with that question.
That was terrible. I apologize. They are delicious. Okay. And this is the additional information that came with the 12,000.
Right. That's the breakdown. So I'll put
Okay.
that $11,000 one in that same
Mm-hmm.
information.
Okay, and they have the average, I know folks are interested in what the average cost of repair was. Okay, that's in here. Okay. So take a moment to look at this background information.
Susan, that was at the last June meeting about the gravestones and wanting more information. So
Right.
that was-
So this is the more information?
Right,
Okay.
because we have another $11,000 bill that's going down that end now.
I just want to check and see where that leaves us with the balance.
I think, did look at that, buddy, but
Uh-huh.
now I don't remember.
Okay.
I use my handy dandy ducks.
All right, let's see. Okay, so in terms of projects, there's an as of the end of June, there's an outstanding balance of 27,500. With these two invoices, that gets us to 23,000. That have come in since June, I believe.
I can get balance.
What isn't necessarily clear in that, let's see if Becky has said anything different, that this is the closeout, that there are no further invoices, and that everything has been paid. Let me see what she says about that. Okay. Okay, so she, on July 9th, she indicated that that was the last invoice, final invoice and closeout report. But that 11,000, I think, has come after that. The committee didn't see the 11th, this new invoice.
No, that's a new one.
Okay. Okay. I guess what I would suggest is that we, just act on these invoices, but not consider it a closeout report. And let me just get a little clarity from Becky, whether there's any additional, since there's still an outstanding balance, are there additional invoices to come? And just kind of a neater, clearer package of this is the closeout, and this is what we spent, it's all done kind of a thing. But we can certainly act on these invoices. All right. Okay, so I think those are the invoices that we have.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Motion to pay the $569.92 to Pioneer Mooring for the Dias Landing kayak rack anchors.
And a second on that?
Second.
All right, Susan. All right. Any discussion? Further questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So that was approve the invoice for,
Motion to pay the invoice of $2,400 to Comprehensive Environment, Inc. For some work done on the Dartmouth Footbridge and Trail feasibility out on Old Fall River Road, Cornell Pond.
second?
Second.
All right, Joan. Any question on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, that's unanimous.
Motion to pay the membership fee of $3,500 to the Community Preservation Coalition
Second.
annual dues.
Okay, Susan's a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, that's unanimous.
Motion to pay an $11,000 invoice to TNT Gravestone Solutions for work done on the Joseph Davis Cemetery.
Second.
All right, any further discussion on that? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Motion to pay the invoice of $412 to Forth Infrastructure and Environmental LLC for professional services at the Dias Landing.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? I would say, I would ask that if we, I think it's fine to approve this, but we should get a little more information about what the professional services remaining are on the project. I'd be happy to reach out to Mr. Mello on that. But on the motion to approve the invoice or payment for the 400 and something dollars, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So I'll make a note to follow up on that.
Oh, this is, we paid this one, right? We don't need a motion on this $12,000.
No. But Michelle was able to find the summary that we were looking for that speaks to this directly as a closeout report. So I had, our closeout report has several items, and she addressed them. And it might be easier, so I just read this, it's not too long, okay? So, the overall description, summary of the project. The project purpose was historical preservation as needed of 200-plus headstones dating from the 18th century at this historic cemetery on Faunce Corner Road. Through cleaning and repair, this work returned the stones to cleaned and upright condition on their bases with the least alteration to their historic appearance, as you will see in the attached pictures. Although the project was bid for the restoration of 67 headstones, 90 were actually worked on. When driving by on Faunce Corner Road, you can't help but notice the gleaming white of headstones at the backdrop to the Welcome to Dartmouth rock, which is true, they are gleaming. The project completion date was slated for August 1st, 2026. The project commenced in July 2025 with a biological solution spraying of the gravestones. 25% of the project was completed by the end of November, 74% was completed by the end of May, and 100% by the end of June. The June 25th Springtown meeting had approved the $50,000 for the project, which is the source of funds. She then lists the invoices, which includes the $11,000 invoice. And the total expended is $33,500. And she tests that all this is accurate. So I believe that I just need to confirm with Becky that indeed there would be a $16,500 balance, unexpended funds for this project. And I can report back on that. And then there are photographs attached to this. So this is what, take a look at that. I read the first page, but you'll see the list of graves and the photographs. So I will confirm with Becky that there indeed is the outstanding balance. And if so, I'll report back to this committee in September. And then what we typically, what we have to do, basically, is we recoup the funds, but they go into the preservation reserve based on the purpose of the project where the surplus was. So it's basically, if indeed there's $16,500 surplus or unexpended, that'll go into the Historic Preservation Fund and can be used for future projects and stuff. So I will reach out and try to confirm all that. Yes?
Was there any mention of the repair to the wall? Because I think that was included in the proposal originally.
Yes. And I think one of those invoices was related to that, but it doesn't mention that. So I can confirm that too. All right, I will do that. All right, confirm wall repair and surplus funds. Very good. Thank you for finding that, 'cause that's exactly the document we were looking for. All right, let's see. We have one project update from the Cultural Center. The advertising, they had advertised for 2 weeks in the Dartmouth Week, and bids for the project were open on July 17th. The building committee is scheduling the review of the bids and interviewing contractors. They've ordered the outside sign, and they are tentatively scheduled to begin construction in September or October. And a letter was sent to the town administrator and select board asking if they could waive the cost of permits. And the building committee has hired Michael Gagne to oversee the project. And that is where it stands. So hopefully by our September meeting, we will hear that they've at least awarded a contract and get confirmation on, how close to their budget does it look like they are. Very good. Oh, I have to sign these. And the next thing on our agenda is to run down the existing, the active projects and any action we need to take about the terms of the projects, of their agreements. So I will just run this down here. Let's see, where's the terms thing? He says, okay, here we go. So we have the ongoing housing rehab program, which we need that is still on hold until, I think, Cody's plan is to reactivate the rehab program once they have an assistant town administrator hired. So that would be the person who would kind of take up responsibility for that. So the paperwork or the revised agreements and review by town council is done. Now they are waiting for, to hire an individual who, among other things, would be responsible for overseeing this program. Housing Trust has an outstanding balance of $485,000, $119.86. And we get an annual report on the activity of the trust. The dog park is complete, and I went to the, I don't think if I had a chance since then, I went to the ribbon cutting. That was pretty wonderful. A lot of people brought their dogs. Didn't occur to me. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, people brought their dogs, but it's a dog park, and so they cut the ribbon, and the dogs went in the park, and it was a really nice ribbon cutting.
He was.
The Dias Landing expansion, the MOU expired in June, so we need to extend. I would recommend extending that to December 31st of this year. There's an outstanding balance of $19,176. There's still, again, the signage, and we just got an invoice from them, so there's still some activity there. We just need a little bit of clarity on what it's going to take to wrap the project up, but there is an outstanding balance, and so we should probably extend the term of the MOU. So if I can have a motion to extend the term for the MOU for the Dias Landing Marina expansion to December 31st, 2026.
So moved.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Any opposed? No. Okay. Dartmouth Cultural Center, their previous grant of $260,000 has an outstanding balance of $246,627. That first grant expired June 30th. And I'm recommending here, since they're just getting under construction this fall, that we consider extending the term of that grant to run concurrently with their second grant, and both of which would expire June 30th, 2027. I could have a motion to extend the Dartmouth Cultural Center grant, existing grant, to June 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Right, and a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then we have the dinghy storage, which we just had another invoice on. That expired June 30th, and so we need to, I would recommend that we, since it's still an active project, we extend it to December 31st, 2026. I'm suggesting that because I don't think there's a lot of work, and so if I think we just keep it on a shorter time frame, maybe that'll help wrap it up. And if I have a motion to extend the Dias Landing Dinghy Storage Improvement Project term to December 31st, 2026.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, okay. And then we have the Housing Production Plan. And that has an outstanding balance of $23,740.70. The MOU, again, expired June 30th, so I'm recommending we extend it to December 31st, 2026. Not clear to me how much more needs to be done before a plan is in front of the select board or planning board for approval. But there has been public input, and I think there's been some drafting of recommendations. So this is assuming that it's moving along. So if I could have a motion to extend the Housing Production Plan MOU term to December 31st, 2026.
So moved.
Okay, and any discussion?
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right. Any opposed? No, it's unanimous. The Aponigencet Park Dias Landing Master Plan, and Jonah, you might have a thought on this, but it expires on December 31st, 2026. There's nothing to do now, but do you just anticipate, you think it's something that's going to probably go beyond that in terms of a,
The board just heard about it for the first time
Oh, okay.
last month.
Yeah.
So I would anticipate that it would go longer than that.
Okay.
Because, there's no funding for it at this time. There's no plan for funding, and, we need to review it.
yeah, okay, great. I mean, we'll take that up in our January meeting, or December meeting, actually. And harbor dredging design, that, I don't have a confirmation of whether there is any additional work on that, so I still don't have that. I should have gotten in touch with Cody on that one before this meeting, so I still need to follow up on that. There's a $10,000 balance, but when I talked to Donna Fernandez, it was her understanding that this project was complete. So what she was doing is checking on whether or not there's $10,000 should have been invoiced against the CPA funds. Northern Scenic Greenway, active project, it expires December 31st, the term does. And then we have the Davis Cemetery, which expired at the end of June. But it looks like they're done with incurring any further costs. I just need to confirm with Becky that there isn't anything further that has been incurred that still needs to be invoiced. So I don't think there's any action on this. DCTV Phase 2, that's the bid documents, that's complete. And the Aiken House water moisture mitigation is complete. And so I think with those actions, we are good, and we'll take this up in December, which we try to do this every 6 months, take a look at what the existing terms are and decide what action needs to be done. Okay,
Buddy,
yes.
before we move on, just a comment and some discussion on the dog park. I saw some, I can't remember where I read it, but I took a visit out there, but they're planning on charging a fee to get into the facility. My recollection, that was never mentioned to us when we approved the funding for this project. And people who know me, I've served on this board a number of years, I'm a proponent of public access to all facilities that we are funding through the tax dollars. And to a certain degree, some unimpeded access. So apparently they plan on the equipment is there where you're gonna need a key, a badge to access. It's gonna be electronic, and you're gonna have to prove your dog is vaccinated and
Yeah,
pay the
yeah.
fee. And there was a sign there, I was able to get, but there was a sign there that it was gonna be soon to be activated. So my point is, I'm very disappointed that, because if I had known that, if that was presented that way, I would have raised some concerns about using public funds to a facility that's locked to, anyone who wants to rent. Now, I love dogs. I currently don't own a dog. I would love to walk into that facility and just experience the dogs running around, maybe bring my grandchildren or something.
Yeah.
I can't do that because I won't have the pass and I don't own a dog that's vaccinated. Those were my tax dollars that were used to build that facility, and I don't have access to it. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would like to notify them and question that, and is there a better way? I know what they're trying to achieve, they're trying to achieve some safety and protection for their dogs. But they're excluding some people who funded that project. And I don't think that's right. I certainly wouldn't have voted for it if they were firm on, no, that's the only way we're gonna run the operation.
Joan, I don't, yeah, no, I just wondered, Joan, if that should come up with the rec.
Right, so it was presented to us at the last meeting. We were not aware that they were going to charge any fees until, what was presented to us was that there have been complaints of from people that were afraid to bring their dogs there because of concerns of other dogs being not vaccinated and putting their dogs at risk. So they came up with a fee schedule. They looked at surrounding towns and cities and towns who charge a fee to access this. And it was under the premise that for the safety of the dogs. The board, we did make it, we made some changes to the fees, especially for seniors, but I share John's sentiments because I don't think that, I agree that it's excluding some people, but the board did approve the fees to go through, and it's going to be a system that from my recollection, the fees are like $25 for a year, and I think it's $10 for seniors. But, and I don't have enough information on, I'm not a dog owner either, but I understand the people's concerns for the dogs, and I don't know I've never experienced watching dogs at a dog park, so it's hard for me to say if this is not important enough. I don't, I'm not, that's not my level of expertise, so. So, but that, I do understand what John's saying, yes, it should be open to people, but I don't know if there's another mechanism to ensure vaccination.
What is the fee for? Where does the money go?
The money goes back to making preparations repairs in the park. It's going to be almost like a revolving fund. The money goes back to maintaining the park, the dog park.
Okay, so this is for their maintenance of the
Right,
park.
the upkeep of the park, if there's anything, repairs or, that's what the money is supposed to go.
That sounds like two different things.
Exactly, how does that
Yeah.
relate?
It sounds like,
It is.
that's what,
And I know there is a dog park in Bedford that you have to be like a member, but other than that, I don't know anyone else who.
but they say this, they claim that there's a fee for the dog park, and maybe that's being a member, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
but
don't know what that
all
is.
I know is that one, I don't know any other dog, all the places I've lived, it's never been.
I can't speak on that
Yeah,
because
yeah, interesting.
I don't have that, but I do understand that, I do share that, I understand the question about that, I question that as well. I don't, I can bring it back to the board and,
Is it rabies vaccination that people are concerned about?
vaccinate, and there was another one, I can't remember, I don't know if there's another vaccination but mostly rabies and vaccination. But I don't know if there's any way that we questioned if there was another way to monitor that. And they said that there was not, but this system would be similar to the beaches and that we charge a fee to go to the beaches, but basically the fee for the beaches is parking, is basically a parking fee.
I mean, you can't register your dog in town unless they have rabies vaccination.
Right, but some dogs are not registered, some dogs, and that was.
Well, that's not legal. You have to register your dog in town.
I understand that, I understand.
But could they,
that,
could
yeah.
there be, if you're honestly trying, if the vaccination is the issue, then there should be, well, I don't know what their membership form looks like, but you just need to give, and I think that's every town, you've got to register your dog.
I
You just need to
agree,
give your-
but if someone shows up at the dog park, can gain access to the facility, and they choose not to register the dog, there's nobody there monitoring.
Right.
There's nobody there monitoring if a dog can get into the,
So how do you get into the park?
You have a
If
key.
you have a key?
if there'll be a fob, so it's going to be like a fob that they're gonna be able to swipe to get into the,
So if one pays the fee, you get a fob?
right, and you can get, and so, there's other discussion on it we're asking for, because there's other, we're trying to, there's no, electricity there, so that's one problem, because we want to see if somebody, how will we know, even if an incident happens between two dogs, if there's a fight or one dog injures another, that was a question that was brought up. We'd like to be able to monitor who's at the park, because there's no one there monitoring that. So it doesn't prevent dogs from getting injured in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't, this system does not prevent that, because we can't keep track of who's at the park. We all have a fob, and it could be your dog and your dog there, but
Yeah.
we don't know who's, so I think it's, something that we're going to, we're looking into more about getting a little bit more information on, so.
Buddy.
But I'll bring this back to the board.
Yeah, for me, this is getting more and more upsetting for
Yeah.
me. None of this was discussed when we reviewed this project about charging fees, limited access. I understand the concern on rabies and dogs, but the fee they're charging is going to maintenance. That was never discussed. That the park department now needs a maintenance fund to maintain the doggy park. That was never part of the project. My issue again is public funds went to do that. I'm a taxpayer, and I can't get in that facility unless I have a dog that's registered and vaccinated. I can get into a beach, even though they charge a fee. I can walk to any beach in the town. I can walk onto the
can
Dyer's
walk- yeah,
Landing,
you can
even though
walk
there's a
onto-
fee to use your boat. I can walk into a lot of facilities that charge a fee, and this should be the same. I think, certainly, what can we do now? We can certainly send a message that if any future funds are gonna be allocated for a project or project somewhere, the tough questions are gonna come out, because I don't wanna be in this situation again where we found out after the fact that we're limiting the access. The safety, Joan was talking about, the concern about the dogs. Well, I'm concerned about my grandkids going down the beach after the season is over and there's no lifeguards. That's a conscious choice that we make as grandparents and parents or individuals, and we use the facility or not. It should be the same for the dog park. I don't want to go in there because the dogs aren't, okay, don't use the facility if you can't prove the dogs are vaccinated. Or, we need to protect the owners. No one's protecting my grandchildren when they go to the beach after hours. There's no cameras there. There's no one there to save them. What's the concern with the dog park? It's, I think, the wrong approach. This is not the project that I thought we were getting for the town.
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything that John said, and on top of that, if they were if they're so concerned about the safety, then why aren't they putting the money towards a monitor or somebody to check that the dogs are all vaccinated and stuff? But it seems like if they're getting a license, which they have to have, but, you know, if you're concerned about safety, then get somebody to check each dog coming in and use the money for that. But I don't think a fee should be charged at all.
Are you talking about a staff person?
Yeah.
Talking of a staff
Right,
person?
at least the money that they're saying is because of safety would go towards a safety solution and not maintenance. But I still don't think that the fee is appropriate.
This project has been around for a number of, years. And, you know, it's, so I'm also thinking that it probably would be helpful to go back to our files and kind of look at, you know, what was the original description of this project and how it was going to be supported. I mean, it goes back years, and I understand things can change, but it might be good to get, you know, look at what we know about the background. And,
I was not part of this committee when
Yeah.
so I don't know what, you know, my colleague, was,
My
And I
recollection
know
is-
that wasn't presented, I know we were not aware of the charges until I think it was our last meeting, which was in June. We were not aware of it until I don't recall exactly when the meeting was, but we just learned about it. So that is not something that the board was made aware of prior to
Yeah.
the presentation.
yeah. So I would suggest, let's first kind of research our record for this project. What was proposed, presented, you know, et cetera. And let me come back for our September meeting with, this is what our files say. And then, you know, I think then we can talk about how to follow up with, you know, maybe even both the park board, you know, and the dog park folks. But let's just kind of make sure we're clear about what our record,
Probably get more.
what our record says.
Yeah, I agree. Before we speak up, we're gonna know the facts.
Yeah.
My recollection, buddy, is that this
Yeah.
was a volunteer organization, and it was gonna be run by volunteers. I don't recall any mention that it was gonna be run by the park department, and the park department was responsible
Yeah.
for the maintenance. My recollection was that this volunteer organization was going to
I'm going to
run
get,
it.
find, hold on.
And that doesn't appear to be, it seems as though controlling it, and they, you know, want to charge fees, but the fees are going to the maintenance. Anyway, let's see what we can. dig up
Let's
and see
look
what
at that,
was in the
because
proposal.
I think we
Because it
all,
was years ago.
we all value the public access in any of the projects. And so it is concerning if this looks to be limiting. You could be a dog owner in town and a registered dog, but you wouldn't be able to walk you wouldn't be able to use the park, and we need to really understand and question that.
And I think there was a question, I think because the Dartmouth Parks is a regional park, I think there may be, I think other people can gain access
Yeah.
outside of the.
As a
Yeah, it's
regional
not
park.
limited to Dartmouth
Yeah,
residents,
right,
but,
right.
Correct. Yeah.
you know, and certainly the entire park was funded with state funds and other funds
Yes.
besides the town. But this particular project was partially funded by CPC, money that we as taxpayers pay into.
Okay.
And I can't access at the moment, or won't be able to access.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Okay, so I'll go report
The
back.
minutes are not up yet from them.
Yeah. I'll report back for our September meeting. This is what our kind of documentation shows. Okay. The next thing I have is the the sign for the cultural center. And they sent, I think we distributed that. Well, that's a nice color one. I just had this bland
Yeah,
one.
but mine is little.
Yeah, yours is a little. And the one thing, and this kind of, another thing that's been around for a long time, that then you're sort of like, probably worth revisiting. So the sign has, first they were looking for the CPC logo. I said, well, we've never adopted a logo. Years ago, we never adopted a logo. And yes, our sign requirements in our standard agreement say use our logo. Well, we never really adopted one. But our signage requirement also has this phrase in it, and it struck me as like, that's probably something we need to revisit as well. So they are correct in their signage, because we say they need to acknowledge community preservation funds used for this project. So they do, and they use the language that's actually in the standard agreement that I think we've had in place since, I think, like 2009 or 2010, a while, which says this project is supported by funds from the Community Preservation Committee, Dartmouth, Mass. Well, really, I think it's really town meeting that awards the funds. We don't give anybody funds. We make our recommendations to town meetings. So it's probably language that ought to be fixed in our standard agreement. But I don't know if they've already gone ahead and kind of have produced this sign. If they have, I think my recommendation is it is exactly what we said. But if they hadn't yet, I was going to recommend that, see if the committee would be willing to revise that sentence to be something like, this project is supported with Community Preservation Act funds from the town of Dartmouth. And if folks are fine with that, so the sign reading would be, this project is supported with Community Preservation Act funds from the town of Dartmouth. And if folks make a motion that we would recommend that they revise their sign.
You can go a little bit further, as it's not 100% the town of Dartmouth, they're a state matching fund, so,
Yes.
how far do we chase it? Do we recognize this
Yeah,
thing too? So,
yeah, but at least in our
but
agreement, we
I'm not
want,
gonna disapprove it, but,
Yeah. Yeah. So is there a second on that? And it would.
Or moved, so moved.
All right. Any other discussion? And I will, if they've done the sign, that's fine. If it hasn't kind of gone to production, then we'll see if we can tweak it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. But it reminded me, I probably should dust off that our standard agreements, we've gone through at least 2 or 3 town administrations since that document was put together. Probably not bad to just take a look at it and tweak that. If there's anybody interested in working on that, a couple of us could just look at that and just mark it up. And we probably would want to check in with Gary, because there's some references to town policies on the use of CPA funds and stuff like that, accountants kind of policy. We should probably check in with him and says, that was something that was put together years ago. Is that something that they still actually refer to? Is he? But if there are any volunteers who want to read this document and mark it up, I'm certainly going to do that. At least I will, but if anybody else wants to volunteer.
I'll take a look at it.
Okay. Yeah, and I think literally, John, I think it's pull it off the website, look at it on the website and just read it for common sense and clarity. It hasn't been looked at for so long. We've probably have learned things.
What's it listed under the website?
Yeah, it'll be the grant agreement, I think it's called on the website. And then some of it might be just common sense and clarity. Some of it might be things you would mark and say, is the town still doing that? When it references one thing or the other. And I'll do the same. And maybe what we can do is just be a little subcommittee and just compare notes via email or something like that. So just to be official, if may have a motion to appoint John Souza and I to be a working subcommittee to review the standard program agreement and MOU and come back with any recommendations for revisions at
So
a
moved.
future date.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, and then okay.
Buddy, we discussing you skipped the Pascamansa Valley?
Oh, yeah, I just I'm sorry, I was looking at my paper and I reordered our agenda, so,
I thought you were waiting for the end.
well, I don't think it was too planned myself. Yes. But let's go back to that item. I didn't want to forget it, but I kind of jumped ahead with the other items in number 4. Okay, so we have the Pascamansit Valley application, which was withdrawn from consideration for the June town meeting, and now Cody Haddad and Mr. Rasmussen from Buzzards Bay Coalition have asked that this be considered for the October town meeting. There are occasions in the past where we have done that with applications, and we've received them, but they were held over for another town meeting. So, and we had talked about it in February, and so I had let folks know, I given you a copy of the issues that we had brought up. But first, just to open up conversation on this proposal. And may I have another tomato, please?
No.
Thanks.
Nope, so.
Oh, man.
Are we going for it here?
Yes, open for,
There's nothing in here that Concom has actually agreed to hold the CR on this, and we know there's like a capacity issue there. So it states that they will. But there's no letter from them, at least I didn't see anything
right.
that says they will agree to do it.
So
And to me, that's an issue because we know they're at capacity.
So we need to get, I think what we had thought, and that probably rings true still from back in February, that we need a letter from the Conservation Commission that they will hold the restriction or what their plan is for the restriction being held by the town, because they can also choose to jointly hold it with another entity.
And then my notes from February say that this would need to be amended for the town to be the co-applicant. Is that what that letter from Cody did?
Yeah, we have an email, but I think we can get a letter. We should
Something more?
get something on a letterhead. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know we talked about where is the public access, where's the parking? I just remember there being a lot of open questions last time. There's no PNS. No appraisal. And then I would like to see better due diligence on, now that we've been through the Junetown meeting, the community support and outreach section. In the application, basically says that Buzzards Bay Coalition has a lot of members, and some of them live in Dartmouth, and that they're gonna kind of rely on CPC to get the word out. And just doing our due diligence and looking back to Junetown meeting, I think they can do better than that.
And what, is there anything specific to either ask or recommend?
Well, I mean, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be, onerous to have to send letters to all the abutters. So I don't know what the solution there is, but just sort of like getting ahead of, problems we saw in Junetown meeting.
About how aware the community is about the proposals that are in front of us. Because there's no statutory requirement for like
Yeah.
you have in zoning and zoning board of appeals, kinds of things like that, or regulatory requirements for. I had a thought about that though, based on the last town meeting, which I thought actually was a really constructive town meeting. Jessica, I can't pronounce her name, right? The outreach and media person in town. I've been getting emails from her, and I don't know if some of you all do, but I'll get an email, which she has an email blast, and I will get one about people who are interested in Dartmouth water quality, or the town has vacancies in this, and I get an email from her. So she's working off and probably continues to build a distribution list. So one of the things that occurred to me, thinking about that town meeting is, our requirement is, we like to hold public hearing portion of our meeting to review projects and get comments on projects, and we do that by putting in the legal notices. But those are things that rarely people read. I mean, I think we've met the letter of what you need to do for a public meeting or hearing. But I'm wondering if she would be willing to, when we have something like, we're gonna, at our September meeting, we're gonna have a public hearing on the following proposals that are before the committee. And that she puts that in a little email blast. Would she be willing to do that?
That would satisfy me.
Yeah, and I think.
Just like a little more due diligence on,
Yeah, and a little note that if you want to, see more, copy the proposals on our webpage. That was another thing that people weren't aware that, you can go to our webpage, you would have seen all 5, proposals that were under consideration. And so what we would do here is we take those down, put this one up, because now we're considering it. But that might get more of a word out, yeah. John, did you have?
Yeah, I agree with everything Sue was saying. For me, the big white elephant in the room is the 40B was approved for the entire parcel. Now the town is looking at, through Ann Buzzards Bay, acquiring approximately 50% of the parcel. What happens to the 40B? I'm sure it's not going away, but what does that look like? Is the 40B going to come back? And again, I don't remember the particulars, let's say off the top of my, there was a 75 units in there. Now, is it going to get reduced by half?
Yeah.
Or they're going to come back to the table again and now with a modified plan and squeeze 75 units into half the parcel?
I don't think they were ever gonna build on this parcel, were they? This is like along the riverfront that's like down.
I
Yeah, I don't know,
believe, I'm not sure
yeah.
on that.
I
So-
didn't think, I thought this was, my understanding was it was a separate parcel
Okay.
over where,
Okay,
That's
so
what
then
I
the biggie is, where is the public access to this? When you look at their aerials that they provided, I lost it.
I did have a note from February that says, does this require subdivision?
Yeah,
That was part of what we
right,
talked
that's a
about.
question that we have for them, yeah.
And that's still,
that's you.
because I would have liked to see this revised and updated.
Yeah, if there are any revisions and update, I mean, we're gonna send them another review
Okay.
letter, yeah.
It'd be a shame that apparently this was in the works behind the scenes in conjunction with the 40B process. And we don't have, they provided us an area view of the two lots. We know there's a series of roads to the 40Bs, but do those roads go right to the conservation area where public access can be gained through those roads, through a trail system? Was any provisions made there to connect this? It would be a shame that the foresight wasn't there for public access through, because I believe the 40B is going to be, it's not going to be private. I think the roads are going to be accepted to town. But anyway, when you look at it, the only access is to the north. There's conservation land there. It looks like maybe a 100-foot strip, but being familiar with that property, there's a stream there, it's wet. You can't walk it. And when you look at the big picture, I'm hoping there is a plan to really open up that area to some nice trails. I grew up not too far from there, and I walked that all the time when we were kids, and go down to the river and go rafting, and there's a little bridge over there. And there were some old trails back then now, and it would just be a shame when you look at the big picture, how many parcels we got that the water department, the Concom, owns, that we don't open that. They talk about in their proposal passive recreation, but that including building a trail network. I'm hoping that if the town is gonna come up with $1 million, that they are looking at building a trail network back there.
I'm all for conserving that piece of land. I think that's a good thing. I just want to make sure that we do our due diligence on, again, it's another big ticket item.
Yeah, let me go over some of these questions that we had in February, can confirm that they're still relevant today, because this is our process. We'll send them, invite them to come in September and present open meeting or public hearing for other people to comment. So there are a couple exhibits that need to be completed, since they haven't done anything to what we have on file. Those still are completing Exhibit G and Exhibit H. I believe may still be relevant, so I'll just confirm that. The town is as co-applicant, they may not be relevant. I can't remember in those sections. Some of those are attesting. Actually, take a look here. It's here. Yeah, the Buzzards Bay would need to complete those as co-applicant. They're a private organization. And then we have, please note that the town of Dartmouth must be included as a co-applicant in order to be awarded CPA funds to purchase the conservation restriction for this property. Please provide a letter, so we should get something on letterhead, from the town indicating that the town is joining the application as a co-sponsor and will accept a CPA award to purchase the conservation restriction for this property. We have, our second question we had then, are there other funding sources for this project? What is the status of securing additional funding?
It references private funding.
Yes, so I think we want to have more, a little more understanding of that.
Right.
Yeah, because this is about about a million, a little more than $1 million in private funding, or
Yeah.
other source, private funding.
Yeah. I'm guessing they have fundraiser and things like that, so I'm guessing that's,
Yeah.
So, but a big question I have is what happens if the town doesn't want to purchase this? Either the CPC or town meeting turns it down. Through my understanding, this parcel is owned by the same entity as the 40B. So through the 40B process, was any restrictions put on this property? And it's too bad, because it seems to me that through the 40B process, it could have been done where this project, it has to remain in open space, and you have to allow public access. I know I sat on the planning board for years, and we did that when we approved subdivisions. We had open space parcels, and we put deed restrictions on them that they forever remain open, and that they'd be used for passive recreation. Didn't cost the town a dime. And, it's unfortunate, it's crying over spilled milk now, but Jesus, why didn't the town, through the 40B process, get this wrapped up without spending $1 million, $2 million, because, that's coming from some generous donors that do a lot for this town. But what happens if we don't
Yeah.
do anything? I suspect, I'm hoping, it's got to remain open space.
So I have what I wrote, like, the question for what if CPA funds are not approved, or less than $1 million is approved?
Yep.
And then.
Well, the question is, were there any restrictions through
Yeah,
the
and then,
40B
right.
process
Right.
put
Did
on
the
this parcel?
40B process place any restrictions on this parcel? Yeah, okay.
are you questioning if it's if it's buildable, John? If it's that portion of land, maybe, is it buildable? Is that?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. If it's, yeah.
Was through the 40B process, was that, phase 2, phase 3 parcel? Or was it labeled unbuildable, or was there a restriction on it that it had to remain open?
Okay, I will add those questions to this letter. We also have, please provide a letter from the Dartmouth Conservation Commission indicating the commission has agreed to hold the conservation restriction on this property. Please provide a copy of the appraisal of the conservation restriction for this property. And just reminding them it's our practice that CPA funds are capped not to exceed the appraised value of the restriction. Mr. Rasmussen had contacted me and asked about the timing of that, and I said, we would probably send them a review letter, and it probably will be in there since it was in the February letter, that we would be asking to come to September meeting if we followed our process, those steps. But if that was, was still an appraiser couldn't get the work done, I said the committee has in the past made putting a warrant article in front of town meeting contingent upon certain things, and I advised them that this would likely be one of those things if we could not be assured that, the appraisal, that there was an appraisal. I said it's easy to withdraw an article from town meeting. We wouldn't be able to go forward, but we could keep the process going. But just, he was aware of that, he understood that. I said, but that would be one thing that we might
Another
cause us
question.
to pull the plug at the end of the process, yeah.
Are there any easements on the property? Mm-hmm. So my recollection of,
Yeah.
and I didn't look at any great details, but through that 40B process they were developing this site, it all drains down to the valley. They were proposed some drainage ponds on the west end of the parcel. Is that in this parcel, those drainage ponds? And do they have easements to that? And if those are there, what does it do for future use? You look at the aerials, that was the golf course. That's not labeled wetlands, that's not treed. Could it be used for a soccer field?
So I'll ask about the
But-
easements, yeah.
I suspect there may be some drainage easements on that. And there were some quite large facilities, from what I recall, to handle that project.
We also had from February, please provide a copy of the purchase and sales agreement for the proposed conservation area.
Yeah, right there.
And and I think this is what you had also mentioned, John, a little bit earlier. Please provide more details on the types of passive and active recreation envisioned for the property. And then we had the question of how will the public access the proposed conservation area? Will parking be provided, and if so, where will it be located? And then we had, how will the property be maintained and managed to return to the referenced natural forest condition? I think that's somewhere in this proposal.
That was a question, or that was an answer?
Yeah, that is something that is mentioned.
That's in,
They
it's
said
in
they're
the,
gonna
it's
let
in
it
the
go?
report, yeah.
To
so-
forest?
Yeah,
How are
it's in
they
the
going
report,
to,
yeah.
what does that mean? How are they going to maintain or manage it to return to natural forest condition?
Is it possible to require them to address those issues in writing prior to our next meeting instead of coming with a presentation?
Yeah, I can ask and see if they can get it to us, like, say, 5 days before, certain few days before our meeting, yes, and we'll get it digitally so that it can go out to everybody. Okay. Yep,
So I think last time they just did a presentation.
yep.
It's nice to be able to read it ahead of time.
To those questions and have the, asking about the easements and then asking about this, if what would be the impact of not having the CPA funds approved or approved for a lesser amount? Did the 40B process place any restriction on this parcel? If, and then when we ask about the funding, the question is what happens to the 40B project? We would like any updates, revisions to the proposal. And then when we ask about public access, we will also specifically, will there be, is there a plan, will there be a trail network on this parcel? It connects to the other adjacent parcel. I think that was your point, John.
Well, none of them have a trail network that is maintained by anybody. Certainly, it's been decades since I've been back there, but there was one main trail that went over an old bridge.
Oh, yeah, that one,
Had two I-beams over it, but
yeah, that
it
one.
used to be an old road, and that was always not maintained, but you could walk through it. I'm sure that still exists to some degree, you know.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about like the ancient, I mean, like a really, like, one of the really, really early projects of the CPC.
No, that's way down in the Gidley Woods.
Yes, okay, so you're.
Stonebridge. This was concrete.
Oh, really?
and,
Okay.
There was a couple I-beams that went across. It was a bridge that somebody,
Okay.
farmer or somebody put up.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you gotta walk, it's not safe. I mean, it's an I-beam this wide. As kids, we used to cross it all the time, but. But it
But
exists.
further down,
There is
yeah,
there
yeah.
was an old road that went through there.
I
but
got it, right?
There's a lot of land back there between the Concom and the wells back there. Be beautiful to walk through.
Okay. Anything else we want to add to this letter? Okay. And so we would have, so our September meeting would include a public hearing, so we need to,
Yeah.
and then you've got the holiday before our meeting, so you get a little complications like that.
And I'm going to add that I'm not going to be here.
Oh, yeah?
I'm gone from August 31st, and I get back on the 8th. That's the meeting.
Meeting the 8th? Oh, yeah, yeah, first of the 8th, okay. Well. We will, we will do our best to keep track of this. Is there someone who could be asked to do this in your place? Maybe you could check around
Yeah.
on that, just to stand in, because it will be, we'll want somebody who can take the minutes and, I mean, it's all recorded,
Details, I know.
but,
You wouldn't want to change the meeting, would you? Another week?
What's the warrant deadline?
I'm sorry?
What's the warrant deadline? Like, when do we have to?
we'll be past that, but they'll accept this, I'm sure. So they, I said to Cody, we would do our regular process, which would mean that we'd be making recommendations for the warrant in September. Which is, usually we make those in August, so it'd be running a month behind. But,
Yes, well,
So I think that will be okay. So the question would be whether or not
It's
we.
just, it's the prep work, it's getting the legal ad out.
Yeah. Yeah,
So possibly the 15th instead of the,
that's where we're,
Well, I looked at that earlier, because then October, the next meeting wouldn't be until October 13th, so it would be
Yeah.
almost a month.
yeah. Okay, let's see.
I mean, I can certainly get the legal ad to somebody to post it, get that done.
Mm-hmm.
I would have, do you want to talk about this now? I could have you submit the agenda to someone, probably be Melanie,
Mm-hmm.
and then she can post it too.
Yeah, yeah.
So you and I can go over those details. before,
Okay.
if you want.
But what do folks think about doing our meeting in September on the 15th? And then we'll have full backup support present, which is, probably would be, certainly make our life ultimately, I think, easier if folks could do that. I could do that.
I can do
When's
15th.
town meeting?
I think the 20th of October. It's that third Tuesday.
So does that leave us enough time? We have to have
Yeah,
public hearing, all our questions answered, and
and take a vote.
take a vote to approve or disapprove.
Yeah. And then getting the warrant article in their hand is easy after that, but let's just,
And right now, this is the only applicant.
yes.
Doesn't leave us much room if there's, this is, I think there's
No.
gonna be a lot of questions, a lot of interest, I would assume, from the public. And is there gonna be potential that something comes up that delays our decision, because we'll still fact
Yeah, I mean,
finding?
that's the.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Certainly,
is
that's
that
the
we're-
risk of
Yeah.
it. Yes, yes.
There's a lot of facts to this that, will we have it all for that meeting?
The other is we go ahead on the 8th, see if we can, if somebody else can step in.
I would have to have that legal ad in for like the 20th or the 27th anyway.
Right,
So that's before I leave.
okay.
So that's
Yeah.
one of the important
Yeah.
pieces.
Other thoughts on this? So, one of the, sticking with our regular meeting date gives us a little bit of cushion if there are some issues that come up that need follow-up or need us to come back together again.
So certainly
this-
the deadline to reserve a article, we can, we can put a hold, because we know it's
Yes,
coming. But it's
exactly.
decision whether we approve or disapprove, so
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable if we meet on the 8th,
Yeah.
that if we don't have all the facts and we've got further questions, we can meet again on the 15th
Yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah, true.
to wrap it up and take the vote to approve or disapprove.
Yeah, yeah,
That's my opinion.
yeah. Okay,
Something this
I can see that.
big, I'd hate to be under the gun, we gotta approve it and we don't have all the information.
Yeah. How do you feel about doing the minutes from watching the
Yeah, that-
DCTV
yeah.
thing?
Yeah, that won't be a
Okay.
problem.
I mean, I feel I can keep track of the things that we're deciding in the immediate follow-up, so I feel okay about that, but I certainly couldn't keep track
Yeah,
of.
no,
I would suggest keep it a light agenda
Yeah, yeah,
to make it easy on Michelle, that it's, just a lighter agenda that,
So we're the 8th.
Yeah.
that's my,
sounds like we should stick to our regular meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So I will get this letter out. We'll have the public hearing notice go out.
I'll work on that, like tomorrow,
Okay.
to get it done.
Great. That would be terrific.
Okay.
Okay. And you'll post the, you'll put this application up? Okay. And then I'm going to follow up with Jessica.
Yeah, she's great at this.
Yeah, and about, give a notice of this. Okay, great, thank you. Okay. Sorry for taking us out of order here.
Okay.
So this puts us back on item 5 in our agenda, the grant agreements. So our next step with the projects that have been approved at Junetown meeting is to send folks the grant agreement, MOU, ask them to enter in the disbursement schedule that they anticipate, just to give us an idea about how the funds will flow, and then get those executed. So there is a section of our standard MOU and grant agreements where we can put in conditions affecting the release of funds. And basically, the idea is try not to, we've avoided this, having money go out prematurely when not everything is in place, and that can be a pretty messy situation, which we have avoided all these years. So I sent out to folks my draft and recommendations, and we can just run through these. The DCTV Phase 3, the renovations, the conditions for release of funds would be, first, they have an executed MOU, and then that we would get copies of the contract, the construction contracts. So that's clear that they're awarded. The amount of the construction has been kind of established, and then they can go forward with invoicing for CPA funds. And that there is a 10% holdback on the project, the total cost of the project, so I think that would be about 46,000 or something like that. That we get the closeout report before that final 10% of the grant is released. Any questions on the DCTV? If I could have a motion to add include these conditions in the MOU.
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. The Crapo Field Lighting, executed grant agreement. When we do projects with the town, again, this goes way back to when these documents were first standardized. When we do documents with the town, they are memorandums of understanding. The attorney at the time who had worked on these documents kind of was making the point that the town doesn't grant money to itself. At least that was my recollection of why the town, the terms are similar, but we call them something different. So here, this is an outside entity, DYAA, so it's a grant agreement. The one thing I put in here is a town letter certifying procurement process for the contractor selection. And thought that would probably be helpful in a project like this because the DYAA is going to be the entity responsible for the bid process and contracting for it. So it seemed to me that it's still town funds, town property. We probably want to make sure that that process has been correctly done. And then executed contract for the work before money is expended, and a 10% holdback for a closeout report that gets accepted. I'll go over the others. We'll wait for John to come back before we vote. Duval Field Conservation Restriction, executed MOU because this is with the town that's purchasing the restriction. Here, it's just the transaction. So what we would need is a copy of the recorded conservation restriction. I think that will be fine. We'll see. The parties, I think, are, well attuned to each other. I think that will be fine. But if there's anything that they might come back about is literally you have to, I think the way the transaction works is, you buy the restriction and then the restriction gets recorded. So I think it goes that way. So if you think technically money would change hands before the restriction is recorded. So I could, we get around the table, that happens, and then it's recorded. So if that be the case, then what I would suggest is we would then do the 10% thing, which is, okay, if money has to happen, I moved on to the, we didn't take any vote on Crapo. I wanted to wait for you to come back, John, but just talking about Duval Field, and that one, the only thing that has to happen there is the restriction is purchased. So what I'm putting forward as the release of funds is the restriction is recorded in the registry. But I was just explaining that could be, because you have to buy the restriction and then record it, that the parties, the Buzzards Bay Coalition in the town, the parties may require that there's the purchase happens first. And if that was the case, then we would allow for 90% of the funds to be released and then 10% held back for the recording, which is what we do with other land deals. But in other land deals, the actual purchase of the property is happening at the same time. This property has already changed hands. It's now just selling. It's now just the selling of the restriction. So it could be that Buzzards Bay is, doesn't need the, they're just going to sell the property rights, the development rights. So they could wait for all of that to happen with the recording. But we'll see. Anyway, I'm probably overthinking this, but.
Is 10% on a land deal reasonable, or is that unreasonable?
It's just typically what we've done.
I know,
Yeah.
but 10%
Right,
is typically,
Yeah,
when
Construction.
you're doing construction
Yeah.
and it's to hold something over the contractor
Yeah.
at the end. That's not the case here.
yeah.
So that's why, is it reasonable to do 10%? on a project like this.
Yeah.
I'm just posing the
Yeah,
question.
okay.
What was the award? I can't remember.
It's gonna
It
be,
was-
it's
it was a lot.
575,000. The way I have it here is no money would change, funds would be released until after the restriction was signed and recorded at the registry, which I think it's the best kind of way. So once it's all done,
Well,
then the
as you
fund.
point, can it be done that way?
Well, that's the
You
one
know,
thing I'm
we-
thinking, like, well, you know, the parties,
Tying somebody's hand where they can't do anything, that.
yeah. Maybe in this case, because there's no property, there's no changing of ownership. This is the owner is selling their development rights. So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, so it may be okay, and the coalition has no intention to develop the property, so they're not on any kind of like, gee, I need this to know it's gonna happen, so it might be okay in this case, but in some other transaction where there's actually a change in ownership of the property, yeah, that people need to see money exchanged.
And the MOU can obviously be revised
Yeah. Yeah,
if there's an issue
yeah,
with it. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with the way you're proposing it then.
all right. Let's drop back to Crapo. And so, as I explained, is you had to leave, John, with, because DYAA is handling the funds and the procurement, but it's town funds and it's a town property, we should just make sure that the town has reviewed and signed off on the procurement process. It was done properly, basically, because there are public procurement laws and stuff that DYA doesn't usually work with. So folks are, if I give a motion to include this, the executed for the Crapo lighting project, the conditions of an executed grant agreement, a town letter certifying procurement process for the contractor selection, the executed construction contract, and then there would be a 10% holdback on the for the closeout report.
So moved?
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. And then Deval Field, is it Davol or Deval?
Deval.
Deval, thank you. Deval Field conservation restriction and executed, the conditions we would include would be an executed MOU. This is for release of funds and a copy of the recorded conservation restriction. If I get a motion for that,
So moved.
Second?
second. And any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The cultural center, this is structured exactly the same way as Crapo Field Lighting, kind of the same scenario. We have public funds, town-owned property, but the cultural center is the entity responsible for selecting a contractor and overseeing the project. So again, for the same rationale, it would be very helpful to have the town review the procurement process and award process that was used, just to make sure everything was fine with the awarding of the contracts or contract. Could I have a motion to include in the grant agreement the conditions for release of funds, being executed grant agreement, a town letter certifying procurement process for the contractor selection, an executed construction contract, and there would be a 10% holdback for the closeout report.
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second?
Any other discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimous. And then the Agricultural Preservation Fund, this is this is a very different document because of it's a fund rather than a specific project. The coalition has done a lot of work around similar kinds of agreements where trust funds, housing trust funds are created or capitalized with CPA funds. So they had a sample of to use for housing trust funds, and I talked to Stuart Saganor, the coalition, about were there any examples for an ag fund, and they didn't have one, but he agreed that the same approach, it would make sense to take the same approach to the ag fund as has been taken with housing trusts. So I took the housing trust kind of document that they have on their website and did some revisions to try to make it fit for what the ag fund would be here in Dartmouth. And he's going to get back to me on kind of what that looks like. I tried to keep certain features that are pretty standard to our own terms in our own agreements. So so there are some conditions. There's a section on, the conditions for release of funds would be. Here, it's an executed MOU. The executed MOU on the fund administration, this is something that folks have already kind of drafted out, have been working on, which is just that all the parties involved in the administration of the fund are clear about their roles and responsibilities. And this is something the Agricultural Commission folks have been working on with the town. And then a first-year budget for the fund. And that will be important because it starts to set aside, you can use some of the fund, CPA funds, for administrative purposes consistent with the CPA. So there's some questions I have for Stuart about how to define where the limits are on that. And so it might be, if there's property that needs a soil analysis for the fund to make a decision about whether or not this is an agricultural piece of land that should be preserved. Can the CPA funds be used in the same way that we have an administrative budget? Can they be used for something like that? So the details of that, I'm going to come back to the committee with what this agreement looks like, and we'll look at it in total. But I anticipate, since there will be some CPA funds that can be used for some administrative purposes, then we'll probably want to see a budget, just to see in the first year how much of the funds will be set aside for the APRs and acquiring properties and restrictions, and how much of the funds are anticipated to be spent on the administrative things that might be consultant or that kind of stuff. So more to come on that, but the reasons why that's there is I anticipate that there's probably that potential. The agreement will need to define where those limits are, but that's what this looks like.
So, Buddy,
Yeah.
will the CPC approve every invoice for anything in that trust fund? Or everything in that
No.
trust fund? That once the money's gone, we don't, what do we vote?
We get,
I vote.
yeah, we're still responsible for the oversight, the accounting of it. So it would be like it's like the housing trust money that the town, Dartmouth has. So once a year, we get figures from Donna. This is how much CPA funds are there. We spent, X dollars on a down payment for
But
a,
that's just reporting, that we
Correct.
won't have any control once the funds are transferred.
no, not in the decision-making. So in the agreement that we're trying to draft up, some of this is trying to address what do we need to know when? To understand the activity of the fund, what do we need to know? Annually, or do we need to, do we need to know?
Well, that's just a report. We wouldn't be taking,
We're
they
not
could be,
taking action.
correct me if I'm wrong, they could be buying a farm, CPC or parcel.
Yes.
CPC is totally opposed to, but we don't have a say at that point. The
Yeah,
funds is
right,
under
'cause
their
the ag-
control.
Right, the Ag Commission is the one
So
responsible for.
That scenario will never happen. Once it's gone, it's
Yes.
theirs to use, to as they
Yeah.
see as fit. The checks and balances were, and that may be put in the MOU, I think, wasn't there a subcommittee of the Ag Commission that was going to review and recommend
Yeah, there's
purchases?
an
I thought there was
advisory group to the
advisory
Ag
group.
Commission, yeah.
We could put in the MOU that process is followed before
Yes.
they release funds.
Yeah, and that's that MOU on fund administration, because they're working on defines who is that advisory group, what is their role? The statute only gives the Ag Commission the authority to decide how the funds would be used. But we still have that responsibility for understanding the activity, because let's say the Ag Commission went out and, bought a department store. We'd want to know that they did that, and then we'd say, you got to give us that money back because you can't use the CPA funds that way. So we need to know their activity.
Good luck at that point.
Yeah.
We can give you a 10%
Maybe they
discount
bought
on
it.
that store, but that's all you're ever gonna see.
Maybe they bought a Tractor Supply. But we have provisions in these agreements of how to claw that back. And then we would say, that one, you shouldn't, Tractor Supply is not what we intended, the use of the funds. And so we'll now invoke section blah, 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 and, give us some money back. So anyway, we just need to, so this agreement will really work through some of the details of how will we stay in touch with the activity? How do we properly kind of set where the limits are of how the Ag Fund can use CPA funds? Because the Ag Fund can accept donations from anybody. A private donor can say, you got an Ag Fund in Dartmouth? I like farm preservation, I'll give you $1 million, which they can accept. With no strings, or certainly not, will have no CPA strings attached to it. So, it's important to define kind of what the strings are that go with CPA funds, because it wouldn't necessarily be true of other funds the Ag Fund might have in it at any point in time. So I don't think we need to do anything with these conditions, because we're going to look at the whole agreement before we pass it on to the Ag Commission in the town to go over. But Stuart Saginaw was on vacation. He only got back yesterday. So he said he didn't get to it before he went away, but he will get back to me on it. So we'll definitely have something for September, which is something that's, I think, worked out in pretty good detail at that point. And it would behoove us just to go through it section by section to see how it works and stuff.
And our MOU is in town council,
Okay.
holding pattern.
All right. Good to know where it is. So I'll be coming back with that in September. Okay, Our financial report. Donna Fernandez is excellent. And so she has sent us, and I forwarded to you all our report on our finances ending as of June 30th. And what I do is update the project balances, so I think I'm kind of up to date with that. But in her report, the things I always look at is kind of what does our surcharge revenue look like? Based, we have estimates, but now this number of $981,291.62 is going to be pretty accurate. Over, sometimes there are late collections that come in, sometimes there are abatements that get processed. That number can change a little bit, but it doesn't change much at all by the time you get to June 30th. The collections in town are quite good in terms, I think, the percentage that they collect on time. So that's a much more real figure than estimated. So I always look at that. And sometimes, and actually, I also, in my spreadsheet, I'll go back and make adjustments to previous year receipts when there have been some of those kind of adjustments. Like you can see in 2025, there was an additional, for fiscal year 25, there was an additional 5,000 that was collected in fiscal year 26. So our fund balance in housing as of June 30th, $367,083.60. In historic preservation, $636,184.85. Open space, $219,154.03. And in unrestricted, as of June 30th, $3,649,204.14. The June town meeting is the commitments for fiscal year 27. So those commitments are made as of July 1st. So the other thing I had passed out was just what our FY27 budget looks like. So I take the number estimated I take the actual surcharge revenue for fiscal 26. So I took that number off of Donna's report, and we usually are estimating, we just add 2% to that number to estimate the upcoming receipts. So we're projecting about $1 million in surcharge revenue for fiscal 27. 15% match, we assume. We got 16.9% last fiscal year. But at 15%, that would be about $147 and $147 and $195. Our admin budget is $35,000, so the net revenue we project for fiscal 27 is $1,113,111. So going into fiscal this fiscal year, so as of June 30th, I went through those fund balances. Our fund balances totaled $4,871,627. So we effectively had available for projects $5,984,738 going into the fiscal year. We made commitments of $3.5 million $3,589,694 at June town meeting, which would, projected balances, since what happens is, once we did our reserves, those accounts don't change. So the Historic Preservation Reserve, other than making any commitments out of, for October town meeting, they are then locked in for the rest of the year, because there's no, only town meeting can move money in and out of these reserves. So, assuming, let's assume there are no October projects, we would be looking at a projected balance of $2,395,044 if there were no October projects. And that's basically the balance of the reserves, and then how much more how much more surcharge revenue would come in over the course of the year, which affects the unrestricted account. I took it upon myself, we're now looking at a proposal for $1 million. It would, most of it, if not, most of it would come from the unrestricted reserve. So what I did is just, if we were to make a recommendation to commit $1 million at the October meeting, that would reduce our projected balance for fiscal, for June 30th, by $1 million. So we'd be $1,395,044. So just to get a sense of where that, if we did that, where that might leave us, I did the projection of available balances, but showed you, but in the context of the history of available balances. So every year I look at Donna's report, which tells us how much money are in our balances, our reserves, as of June 30th. That is the blue part of these columns. The red part is the surcharge revenue. So that's how much money comes in. And so any of the historical is actual numbers that have come in through the accountant's report. Green part is the state match and any previous fiscal year. So from 26 on back, those are actual numbers. And when you add all those three things together, what we have in the bank, what we collect in revenue, what the state gives us, that is basically what we go into each year with projecting for available money, available for projects. So with the million, if we were to do the $1 million commitment for October town meeting, this is what fiscal 28 would look like. So I just want to give folks a historic perspective on where we would land. And if we didn't do the October, if we did no commitments in October, just kind of bump that up by $1 million. That little bar, that blue part would grow by $1 million, and we would be up somewhere in the 3.5 as opposed to 2.5. So anyway, just to give you some perspective on where we might land and how's that look in the course of history of the CPA fund, at least going back to, what's that, 2010, or fiscal year 2010. Any questions on that? You know, I'll make sure we have this for September meeting as well, but I thought I'd just kind of throw that out now for reflection. Okay. If there is no other business, I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second? Shall we discuss this for a few more minutes? Let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? No one wants to stay any longer than this.